I met Musa in high school. We were both in the same class, always sitting near each other. He was the funny one, always making everyone laugh, but I noticed he was quieter around me. I liked that about him. There was something calm and warm about him that made me want to be around him more. It wasn't long before we started texting after school. At first, it was about assignments or class stuff, but soon we were talking about everything: life, dreams, our families. I realized then that I had feelings for him. I wasn't sure if he felt the same, but there was something in the way he smiled at me that made me wonder. One day, Musa asked if we could hang out after school. It was like a date, but we didn't call it that. We were still young, and the idea of calling it a date made both of us shy. We went to a small cafe in the city, one of those places where students like us could afford a soda and some fries. We talked for hours, just enjoying each other's company. Things happened quickly after that. Neither of us planned it, but by the end of that night, we found ourselves getting really close, closer than we had ever been. It wasn't like the movies. It was awkward, and we were confused. We didn't know how to talk about it afterward. It wasn't what we expected from our first date, and it left us both feeling unsure about everything. After that night, things changed. We avoided each other at school for a while. The silence between us was heavy, and I didn't know how to fix it. I thought maybe Musa regretted it, and that made me feel like I messed things up. He was my friend first, and I didn't want to lose that. I also didn't want to admit that I still cared about him. Weeks went by before we spoke again. Musa came up to me after school one day and said we needed to talk. I was nervous, thinking he might end things for good. But when we finally sat down, he just said, "I miss you." That's when everything changed. We talked about what happened, and we realized that it wasn't a mistake, just something that happened too fast. We were young, inexperienced, and unsure of what we were doing. But underneath all of that, we still liked each other, and that was something we didn't want to lose. From that point on, we took things slowly. We went back to being friends first, but it was different now. We knew we had feelings for each other, and we didn't want to rush anything. Over time, we got closer again, but this time it was more comfortable, more real. We learned to communicate better, and we started dating for real. But our relationship wasn't easy. We both came from families with different expectations. My parents were strict and didn't like the idea of me dating while still in school. His family had their own worries about him being distracted from his studies. We fought about these things a lot. Sometimes we would stop talking for days because we didn't know how to deal with the pressure. There were moments when I thought we wouldn't make it. At one point, Musa even suggested we break up so we could focus on school and our family's expectations. But something in both of us kept pulling us back together. We weren't just in love, we were growing up together, learning how to handle life. Years passed, and we went through so many ups and downs. We went to different universities in the city, and long distance wasn't easy. There were temptations, arguments, and moments of doubt. But we always found our way back to each other. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Eventually, after we both finished school and started working, Musa asked me to marry him. It wasn't in some fancy restaurant or with a big speech. We were just walking around the city one evening, talking about life, like we always did, and he turned to me and said, "I want us to be together, forever." I laughed at first, thinking he was joking, but then I saw the look in his eyes, and I knew he meant it. I said yes, of course. After everything we had been through, we knew we could handle whatever life threw at us. Now, looking back, I'm glad we went through all those tough times. We didn't have a fairy tale relationship. It was messy, hard, and full of mistakes. But that's what made it real. We didn't give up on each other, and that's why we made it. We grew together, and now we are stronger because of it. And that's the story of how Musa and I went from being awkward teenagers who didn't know what we were doing to partners for life.